The first letter arrived in November 2023. It was folded neatly. No return address, no fingerprints. The sheriff's clerk who opened it later described her hands trembling, as if she knew instantly that this wasn't junk mail. Inside were 3 pages of lined notebook paper, written in dark blue ink. The words were uneven, hurried, almost frantic. "You think you know what happened to Jessica Harper?" the letter began. "You don't. The man you have isn't the one who made her disappear." Detective Harris later told a reporter, "At first we thought it was a prank, but then we saw the details, things we'd never released to the public." The letter described the perfume Jessica had been wearing the night she disappeared. It described the layout of the diner's back entrance, and it mentioned a broken necklace clasp left in her car, a detail detectives had deliberately kept quiet for nearly 30 years. Whoever had written the letter either had access to the case file or had been there the night Jessica vanished. For Sarah, hearing about the letter reopened wounds she thought had begun to heal. "I wanted to believe it was fake," she said, "but some part of me thought, what if? What if my father wasn't the only monster?" The investigators were torn. On one hand, DNA evidence tied David Mitchell to Jessica's abandoned car. On the other, this anonymous letter hinted at another hand in her disappearance. As Harris put it was like standing on quicksand. Every answer only pulled us deeper into the uncertainty. The case files were dusted off once again. Detectives combed through names that had been buried since 1995, and one name kept resurfacing: Gary Holloway. Holloway had been a truck driver in the mid-1990s, a regular at the diner where Jessica worked. Waitresses remembered him lingering in the parking lot, sometimes following them home, sometimes waiting until closing time. He was questioned back then, but nothing stuck. Without evidence, he was let go. Now, decades later, the question returned. Was Holloway the shadow they had missed all along? But if he was, why had David Mitchell's DNA been in Jessica's car? Sarah described the months that followed as some of the darkest of her life. "It felt like I couldn't trust my own story anymore. I had lived through the truth of who my father was. I knew what he was capable of, but now everyone wanted to turn him into a puzzle piece, and I was the one left holding the picture." The second letter came in December. This one was typed, the sentences cold and mechanical. "Look under the old oak tree on Miller's Road," it read. "You'll find what you missed." Detectives debated whether to follow the clue. Some argued it was a trap, but the sheriff signed off. Cadaver dogs were brought to Miller's Road, to the stretch of woods where the old oak stood, and there, beneath its roots, searchers uncovered fragments of bone. The forensics team worked through the night. By morning, the results were in. The bones belonged to Jessica Harper. For Harris, the discovery was gut-wrenching. "We knew then the letter wasn't a prank. Whoever wrote it knew where she was, knew she'd been buried and then moved. That wasn't a guess. That was knowledge." But if the letter writer was the killer, why taunt the police now, decades later? And where did that leave David Mitchell? In January 2024, investigators brought the second letter to Holloway's doorstep. He denied everything. But when they searched a storage unit he had kept for years, they found an old typewriter. Forensic analysts compared the impressions of its keys to the second letter. It was a match. The prosecutors thought they had what they needed. They prepared to charge both men, David Mitchell, whose DNA was in the car, and Gary Holloway, who had access to the typewriter that produced the letter. But then came the third letter. It arrived in March 2024, shorter than the rest, only 3 sentences, handwritten again. "I was there that night, and I wasn't alone. Jessica deserved better than what we gave her," and at the bottom, the signature, Linda Mitchell. The revelation tore the case apart. Linda had always been seen as another victim, a woman living under David's thumb, too frightened to leave. Now, investigators were forced to ask, was she also complicit? The handwriting was hers. Forensic examiners confirmed it matched samples from library cards and old forms. The paper came from a notepad in her kitchen drawer. When detectives confronted her, Linda broke down. "I didn't write it," she sobbed. "I swear to God I didn't." Sarah recalled the moment like a second betrayal. It was like losing her twice. First as a mother, then as the person I thought I could still trust. The media storm was relentless. Headlines screamed, "Mother confesses in cold case." Talk shows debated whether Linda had helped David cover up Jessica's disappearance. Others speculated she was being framed, her name stolen to redirect suspicion. Jessica's sister, Amy, was furious. "We've waited 30 years for the truth, and every time we think we're close, it slips further away." In court, chaos reigned. Prosecutors tried to juggle evidence against David and Holloway, but Linda's alleged confession threw everything into question. Defense attorneys pounced. David's lawyer thundered, "This proves my client is a scapegoat." Holloway's attorney argued, "You've harassed him for decades without a shred of proof." Linda's counsel told reporters, "This is a cruel forgery." Nothing more. The judge delayed the trial, demanding clarity. But clarity never came. Sarah chose to speak publicly. At a rally for survivors, she stepped up to the microphone. Her voice shook at first, but she steadied herself. "I may never know the truth," she told the crowd. "I may never know if my father killed Jessica or if my mother knew more than she ever admitted. But I do know this: silence kills. Secrets kill. And if you are living in fear, break free before the lies bury you too." The audience was silent for a moment. Then they erupted in applause. But Sarah left the stage with tears in her eyes. In July 2024, one last twist surfaced. Forensic analysts recovered a partial fingerprint from the second letter. It didn't belong to David. It didn't belong to Holloway. It didn't belong to Linda. It belonged to an unidentified male, never matched in any database. Another shadow still out there. David Mitchell remains imprisoned, but not for Jessica Harper's murder. Gary Holloway lives under suspicion, but walks free. Linda Mitchell carries the stigma of a confession she swears she never wrote. And Sarah continues her advocacy, haunted by questions that will never be answered. She said quietly in an interview, "I wanted closure. Instead, I got a story with no ending. And maybe that's the most honest ending of all." The case of Jessica Harper remains officially unresolved. One set of bones, 3 letters, 4 suspects, and somewhere out there, perhaps, the real author of those confessions still walks free. The question isn't just who killed Jessica Harper. The question is, how many shadows can one crime cast? Some stories close with a verdict. Others close with silence. This one closes with uncertainty. What do you believe? Was David Mitchell guilty? Was Holloway the predator? Did Linda know more than she claimed? Or is there another hand the fingerprint never matched that holds the real answer? Share your thoughts in the comments, like, subscribe, and join the discussion. Because sometimes the only way to keep the shadows from winning is to keep asking the questions no one else dares to.